a combination of pure luck, pure coincidence, and a sense of being open to being led in another direction and feeling a connection with something. So the basic story of that is, so I'm in college, pre-med, and I am taking my organic chemistry final, I believe. That was an intense class. And so I go to the library to study. And I just picked a quiet area and a table to study in. That's all I was looking for. So I'm sitting here studying, and periodically you need to take a break from studying and let your mind do something else. And I looked at the shelf to my right, and I happened to be in the foreign language dictionary section of the library. And there was a Chinese English dictionary there. So I took the dictionary down and I'm opening it just literally to take a break, a mental break, and probably procrastinate, and was mesmerized. It was the characters, it was the beauty of that language. And so I would look up, I started looking up words and seeing if I could draw these characters, imitate them, and make little sentences, and I just couldn't stop doing it. And then I was like, gotta get back to the chemistry, So, but something about that grabbed me. When I went home after finals for the summer, I'd mentioned that to my parents. I was like, you know what the coolest thing was? This Chinese language thing. And she said, just so happens that good friends of ours have a daughter who just returned from China. She spent a few years there. She's fluent in Chinese. Why don't you just go talk to her and see what it was like? And so I did. And I ended up taking lessons all summer in Chinese. But those lessons weren't just about language. She talked about her experiences there, Chinese culture, Chinese history and philosophy, and I'd never studied this before. Was just so taken with it. So when I went back to school the next year, sophomore year, I started to take Chinese. So I was taking the Chinese language and a few things about Chinese culture, but I was still doing the sciences and the pre-med. Then came the time to declare a major. And what I did was, where I was going to college at the time, they have the Woodrow Wilson School of Public and International Affairs. This was at Princeton. So they have a sort of international affairs element to that where I could focus on East Asia, do China stuff. But you have to apply to it. So this is what I told myself. I will leave it in the hands of them, of others. I'll apply for this. If I'm accepted, then I'm meant to go that way. If I'm not, then I'll stay pre-med and do molecular biology. It was almost like trying to alleviate, myself of the choice, trying to free myself from that burden. Of course, you're still making a choice when you do that to say, you'll decide. But I did, and so I got in, and I decided to just change everything, just to turn in that direction, and I immersed myself in everything China-related. It made me wonder, how many of these moments in our lives, the serendipity, you don't even realize what you're looking for at the time, and it somehow finds you, or it just moves you in a direction that then leads to something else and something else. So I never could have foreseen, if you had asked me when I was a first year student in college, what I would end up doing with my life, this would not have even been on the radar. So I tell my students here, if you don't know yet what you want to do, that's completely fine, because even if you did, chances are it would change. But I was still torn. I didn't know, what's the job prospects? And, I had all these doubts and all these questions. Can I really do this? Am I going to be financially stable like my parents want me to be? All of that. And so I went to see my mentor, which is another part of the calling process. Others can really help you discern when you're struggling. And he fit this part perfectly. So he had, literally the gray beard and a sense of gravitas to him, very thoughtful. And he's the kind of guy that asks very probing questions, right? Gets you to really struggle and think. And then usually he'll have a conversation with you. And then as you're leaving, saying goodbye to him, he'll just drop some huge comment or question on you that you're like, wait, what does that mean? He'll say goodbye. And then you are just left to think on that thing. So he has this conversation with me, and I said, I don't know what to do. On the one hand, I can return to the business world. I got my East Asian studies background. I've taken some business courses. I could have a really nice career, there. Or I could roll the dice and just go for a PhD and see where that leads. And I'm torn. And he said something like this. He leans in and he goes, well, you can go back to the business world, and I'm sure you would do quite well. But you would be turning your back on what is most important in yourself. Good day." That was it, right? So I thought, wow, that was rather intense. So what does he mean? Like, of course, now I know he was right. Took me time to see. I would never have been happy. Never have been happy going back to the financial world. One thing I've done over time is I've realized how important vocational reflection is having panels at the end of each year where people from different, professions, even radically different forms of life come back, and they all talk about how they ended up where they are, asking the kinds of questions that you've asked here about their path. And so we'll have like an artist, a scientist, a business person, a teacher, or whatever, all these different people, right? And the one of the common themes that woven through all these panels has been, in almost every case, the person there said, if you had asked me in college what I'd be doing, I would not have guessed it would be this. That everyone took a circuitous route to where they ended up. And so sometimes now when students are asking me, or recent graduates, they'll say, I realize I don't love what I'm doing right now. I don't want to stay in this job. I'm not sure, though, what I'm expected to do with my life next, right? One way to think about it is, if you just take a next step, you're going to get a whole new vantage point, where you'll discover things that you might, from where you are now, not even know. So just take it. And then discernment practices, right? Reflective, talking to others, whatever you do, you will find, it's almost like I do have this faith that if you're open and you ask these questions, you will find your way. But it's not necessarily going to be clear to you from where you stand now. And I think it's a lesson I learned from all these people. I never would have predicted this for myself, but I'm delighted it worked out this way.